The morning they gathered around my hospital bed to divide up my life, I counted every word, every breath, every greedy whisper they thought I couldn't hear. My sister Verena was actually wearing my diamond earrings, the ones from my jewelry box at home, while she discussed selling my house with Uncle Dwight. 6 months trapped in my own body had taught me patience, but nothing prepared me for the moment my 8-year-old son Theo walked into that room full of vultures and changed everything with a single sentence. "Mommy's eyes are open," Theo announced, his small voice cutting through their negotiations like a blade through silk. The papers in Uncle Dwight's hands rustled as he froze mid-signature. Verena's hand went to her throat, right where she was wearing my mother's pearl necklace that she'd claimed I'd promised her. My parents, standing in the corner like guilty shadows, gasped in unison. But Theo wasn't finished. He walked straight to my bedside, took my hand in both of his small ones, and looked directly at his aunt. "Mommy, should I tell them what Aunt Verena did to put you here?" His voice was steady, brave in the way only children can be when they know they're telling the truth. "Should I tell them about that night? About what you did with her computer before the accident?" The heart monitor beside my bed was the only sound for 3 full seconds. Then Verena dropped her phone and it clattered against the linoleum floor like bones rattling in a coffin. Her face went from pink to white so fast I thought she might faint. But I kept my eyes locked on hers, letting her see that I'd heard everything, every single conspiracy, every theft, every lie she'd told while thinking I was gone. I couldn't speak yet. My throat felt like sandpaper after 6 months of breathing tubes and silence. But I didn't need words. The fury in my eyes said everything, and Verena knew it. She stepped backward until she hit the wall, her hand still clutching those pearls that were never meant to be hers. "She can't be awake." Verena's voice cracked like thin ice. "The doctors said she was brain dead. They said she'd never recover. But I was very much awake, very much aware, and very much ready to reclaim everything they'd tried to steal from me while I lay there, fighting my way back from the darkness they'd pushed me into. Life before the accident feels like a different universe now, one where morning coffee meant possibility, and Theo's laughter was just background music instead of the lifeline it would become. I'd built my real estate development company from a single rental property into a portfolio worth $8 million, and every penny of it was earned through 16-hour days and calculated risks that made my family nervous. Our morning routine was sacred. Theo would stumble into the kitchen at 7 sharp, his dark hair sticking up in impossible directions, dragging his favorite dinosaur blanket behind him. I'd already be at the kitchen, island, laptop open, reviewing contracts, while the coffee maker gurgled its familiar tune. He'd climb onto the bar stool beside me, and I'd close the laptop because those 20 minutes were his, no matter what million-dollar deal waited in my inbox. "Mom, did you know that octopuses have 3 hearts?" He'd announced one morning, exactly 2 weeks before everything changed. He was spreading peanut butter on his wheat toast with the concentration of a surgeon. "Mrs. Patterson taught us that yesterday. 3 hearts, and if one stops working, they keep living." "That's pretty amazing," I'd replied, ruffling his hair. "Maybe humans should have backup hearts too." "You already do," he'd said matter-of-factly. Me. God, that kid. Even at 8, he had this way of seeing straight through to the truth of things. Maybe that's why he was the only one who noticed what Verena was doing, while everyone else was blinded by their grief and greed. My family had always been complicated, but success had turned those complications into something darker. My younger sister Verena had dropped out of 3 different colleges and burned through 7 business ventures, each one funded by loans from me that she'd never repaid. The yoga studio, the jewelry boutique, the organic soap company, the food truck. Each failure somehow became my fault for not investing enough, not promoting her enough, not believing in her enough. "It must be nice," she'd said at our mother's birthday dinner just a month before the accident, "to have everything handed to you." Handed to me? I'd kept my voice level, aware of Theo listening from the kids' table. "I work 90 hours a week, Verena." "With Daddy's money to start," she'd shot back, conveniently forgetting that the $5,000 our father had lent me had been paid back with interest within 6 months, while her $40,000 in family loans remained outstanding. Our parents, Gordon and Phyllis, had always struggled with the dynamic. Dad worked at Henderson's auto shop for 35 years. Honest work that paid the bills, but never extra. Mom kept house and kept peace, or tried to. When my success became impossible to ignore, they developed this strange mixture of pride and resentment, like my achievements somehow highlighted what they hadn't accomplished. "Your sister's just going through a rough patch," Mom would say whenever Verena asked for another loan. "Family helps family." But the real poison in our family tree was Uncle Dwight, my father's younger brother who'd gotten his law degree from a correspondence course and never let anyone forget he was the educated one in the family. He'd handled my first real estate closing, taking twice the standard fee because family deserves extra care. When I'd started using a proper firm downtown for my bigger deals, he'd taken it as a personal betrayal. The lakefront property had been the breaking point. 20 acres of pristine waterfront that I'd bought from a distressed seller for cash. Dwight had shown up at my office the next day, all fake smiles and family bonds. "That land's worth triple what you paid," he'd said, settling into my office chair without invitation. "I'll take it off your hands for double." Family discount. "It's not for sale, Dwight." His face had turned the color of raw beef. "You'd rather hold on to dirt than help your uncle make a decent living after everything I've done for you?" "Send me an invoice for everything you think I owe you," I'd replied calmly. "I'll pay it in full and we can close our accounts." He'd stood up so fast the chair spun. "You think you're better than us now, don't you? Too good for the family that raised you?" That was 3 months before the accident. He'd been cold and distant at every family gathering since, whispering with Verena in corners, their eyes following me with an intensity that should have been a warning. The last normal day of my life had been perfect in its ordinariness. I'd signed the Riverside development deal, my biggest yet. $3.2 million for a property that would become affordable housing for working families. I'd called Theo from the car, promising to pick up pizza to celebrate. The rain had started during the drive, heavy sheets that turned the windshield into a watercolor painting of blurred lights. Then headlights in my lane, the sickening crunch of metal, and darkness that would last for 6 months while the vultures circled what they thought was my corpse. The darkness wasn't empty. It was full of voices, machines beeping, and the suffocating weight of my own body refusing to obey even the simplest command. I could hear everything with perfect clarity, but I was imprisoned in flesh that wouldn't respond, couldn't even manage a finger twitch to let them know I was still here, still fighting, still absolutely aware of every word they said over my supposedly unconscious body. The first week, they cried. Mom sobbed so hard she hyperventilated twice, and Dad kept clearing his throat the way he did when he was trying not to break down. Verena actually seemed genuinely upset, holding my hand and promising she'd take care of Theo. Even Uncle Dwight sounded shaken when he discussed my medical directives with the doctors. "She's a fighter, Doctor," Holbrook had said. "The brain injury is severe, but we've seen recoveries from worse." The next few weeks will tell us more. By week 3, the tears had dried and the conversations shifted. I learned that being comatose doesn't mean you're absent. It means you're a ghost at your own funeral, watching people reveal who they really are when they think you're not looking. "The medical bills are astronomical," Dwight announced during what they'd started calling their family meetings right there in my room. $60,000 just this month. Her insurance cap's at $500,000. Then what? "We can't think about money right now," Dad protested weakly. "Someone has to," Verena interjected. "Theo needs stability. School, clothes, food. Sienna would want us to be practical." I wanted to scream that Theo's college fund had $200,000 in it, that my life insurance would cover everything, that I had contingency plans they knew nothing about. But my voice was gone, trapped behind tubes and paralyzed vocal cords. Week 6 brought the lawyers, not just Dwight, but 2 associates from his struggling practice, vultures in cheap suits who spoke about me like I was already buried. "The power of attorney is clear," one of them said, papers rustling near my left ear. "Mr. Dwight Morrison has full authority to make financial decisions if Ms. Reeves is incapacitated for more than 30 days. That POA was from 8 years ago, before Theo, before my success, when I was young and stupid and thought family meant automatic trust. I'd been meaning to update it. had the new papers drafted, and sitting on my desk at home, unsigned because I'd been too busy living to think about dying. "What about the business?" Verena asked, and I heard the hunger in her voice. "Technically, it needs to keep running to maintain value. I'll need to appoint temporary management. Verena, you have the most availability." My company, which Verena couldn't even spell the name of correctly, suddenly under her control. She'd never run anything successfully except straight into the ground. The conversations became bolder as weeks turned into months. By month 3, they were dividing my possessions while standing over my bed. "I've always loved her engagement ring," Verena said one afternoon, and I felt her slide it off my finger. "Brett won't mind. He's remarried anyway." "That's stealing," Mom whispered. "It's practical." "These rings just attract the wrong kind of attention from hospital staff. I'll keep them safe." Safe in her jewelry box, no doubt. The engagement ring Brett had saved 6 months for, back when we were young and believed love could overcome anything, including his eventual infidelity with his secretary. I'd kept wearing it on my right hand for Theo, a reminder that even failed love could produce something perfect. Dr. Holbrook's updates became their ammunition. The EEG shows minimal activity. She's not responding to stimuli. The probability of meaningful recovery decreases significantly after 3 months. "So she's basically a vegetable?" Verena asked with barely concealed hope. "We don't use that term anymore, but yes, she's in what we call a persistent vegetative state. That's when they stop pretending I might wake up. Dwight started liquidating my assets for medical expenses, though I heard him mention a new BMW to his secretary on a phone call. Verena moved into my house to maintain it and began selling my furniture on Facebook Marketplace. I knew because she photographed each piece right there in my room, describing them out loud as she typed the listings. Restoration hardware leather. Sofa, barely used. 8,000 new, selling for 2,000 firm. Cash only. My parents' weak protests grew quieter each week. They were overwhelmed, elderly, and Dwight kept reminding them about their own debts, medical bills from Dad's heart surgery that I'd been quietly paying. The worst torture was Theo's visits. They limited him to twice a week, supervised, always with Verena or Dwight present to control the narrative. "Mommy can't hear you, sweetie," Verena would say when he tried to tell me about school, "but you can say goodbye if you want." "She's not dying," Theo insisted every single time. "She's just sleeping." Like Sleeping Beauty. "This isn't a fairy tale," Dwight said coldly one day. "Your mother is never waking up. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be," but Theo never accepted it, and neither did I. Week 23 brought the first spark of hope. I felt a tingling in my left index finger, like electricity trying to find a path through damaged wires. The sensation lasted only seconds, but it was proof that my body hadn't given up, even if everyone else had. I focused every ounce of mental energy on that finger, willing it to move, to twitch, to do anything that would signal I was still fighting. The rehabilitation happening inside my skull was invisible to the monitors. I was rebuilding neural pathways through sheer determination, creating detours around the damage like a driver finding back roads when the highway is closed. Each day, I practiced visualizing movement, remembering the feeling of lifting my hand, turning my head, opening my eyes. The doctors would have called it impossible, but they weren't the ones trapped inside, desperate to break free. Verena's visits had become brazen shopping trips through my remaining possessions. She'd arrive with tote bags, filling them while maintaining a one-sided conversation for the nurse's benefit. "Oh, Sienna, I'm just taking a few things to keep them safe," she'd say loudly, then drop her voice to a whisper. "Not like you'll need designer handbags where you're going. The Chanel double flap will look perfect with my new outfit." One afternoon, she brought Uncle Dwight and 2 other men I didn't recognize. Their conversation made my blood run cold, or would have if I could have physically reacted. "The business audit is complete," Dwight announced. 3 development projects in progress, 8 properties in the portfolio, and about $4 million in liquid assets once we factor in the sales. "The offers on the lakefront property are coming in," one stranger said. "Highest bid is $2.8 million. My lakefront property. 20 acres I'd bought for my son's future, where I'd planned to build a summer camp for underprivileged kids once Theo was older. They were selling my dreams along with my assets. What about declaring her mentally incompetent? Verena asked. Would that speed things up? Dr. Holbrook won't sign off on it yet. He's one of those bleeding heart types who thinks miracles happen. But I found another neurologist who's more pragmatic, Dr. Reams. He'll do an evaluation next week. And Theo? The second stranger asked. Brett's on board. He'll file for emergency custody based on abandonment. Says he'll drop it once the estate is settled, for the right price. Figures $200,000 should cover his sudden paternal instincts. My ex-husband, who'd missed Theo's last 3 birthdays, who'd paid child support only when threatened with jail, was now selling his son's future for a payoff. The rage gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. My middle finger twitched, then my thumb. Nobody noticed, but I felt it. I was coming back. The breakthrough came during an evening when everyone thought I was alone. Theo had snuck into my room. I heard his little feet padding across the floor, heard him drag the visitor's chair closer to my bed. Hi, Mommy, he whispered, taking my hand. I know you can hear me. I've known for weeks. My heart rate increased slightly. He noticed. See? Your heart speeds up when I talk. The nurses don't pay attention, but I do. I've been charting it in my notebook. You react more when you're angry or when I'm here. My brilliant boy. 8 years old and conducting his own medical research. I need to tell you something important. His voice dropped even lower. I saw Aunt Verena at our house the night you crashed. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard her in your office. She was on your computer, deleting things. She kept saying, perfect, perfect, while she typed. The memory felt like puzzle pieces clicking together. I'd received an urgent email that day about the Newton Bridge construction, warning about a sinkhole on my usual route home. There had been a meeting request to discuss alternate routes, but when I'd checked my phone before leaving the office, both were gone. I thought I'd imagined them, stress from the big deal making me see things. She deleted your safety alerts, Mommy, the ones about the dangerous roads. I saw them on your screen before dinner. Those red warning symbols you showed me mean danger. But after she left, I checked, and they were gone. My finger definitively moved, squeezing his hand. Theo gasped. You can move! Mommy, you can move! He caught himself, looking toward the door. I won't tell them yet. They're planning something bad. Uncle Dwight has papers coming tomorrow. Something about making Aunt Verena my guardian and executor of your estate. He says once, Doctor, Reams signs his evaluation, you'll be declared brain dead and they can do whatever they want. I concentrated harder than I'd ever concentrated in my life. My eyes had been moving under my lids for weeks, following sounds and light changes. Now I needed them to open. Theo needed to see that I was here, that I was fighting, that I wouldn't let them steal his future. I've been recording them, Theo whispered, on the iPad you gave me for Christmas. I hide it in my backpack when I visit. I have 17 videos of them talking about your money, about sending me away to boarding school, about Aunt Verena moving into our house permanently. My son, my brilliant, brave son, gathering evidence while playing with action figures, looking small and helpless while documenting their crimes. The fury and pride mixed into something powerful enough to force my eyelids to flutter. Tomorrow, when they're all here with the lawyers, that's when you need to wake up, Mommy. Can you do that? Can you open your eyes tomorrow? I squeezed his hand once. Yes. Tomorrow I would rise from this manufactured grave and reclaim everything they thought they'd stolen. The morning arrived with unusual commotion. I heard multiple footsteps in the hallway, hushed conversations, the rustle of expensive suits and legal documents. Through my closed eyelids, I could sense the room filling with people, transforming my sterile hospital space into an impromptu courtroom where they planned to declare me dead while I still breathed. Everyone's here, Uncle Dwight announced with satisfaction. Judge Morrison, no relation despite the shared surname, has graciously agreed to this bedside hearing given the unusual circumstances. I counted voices as they filed in. The judge, 2 additional lawyers, Dr. Reams with his prejudiced evaluation, Verena, my parents, 2 witnesses from Dwight's office, and a court reporter. They'd turned my potential deathbed into a legal circus, complete with an audience to watch them carve up my life. "Let's proceed," Judge Morrison said, his voice gravelly and impatient. "I have 3 more hearings today." "Your Honor," Dwight began formally, "we're requesting immediate transfer of guardianship of the minor child, Theo Reeves, to his aunt, Verena Blackwood, along with full control of the estate valued at approximately $8 million. The mother, Sienna Reeves, has been in a persistent vegetative state for 6 months with no meaningful brain activity." Dr. Reeves cleared his throat. "I examined Miss Reeves yesterday. Complete unresponsiveness to all stimuli. The EEG shows minimal cortical function. In my professional opinion, she will never regain consciousness. She's essentially brain dead, kept alive only by artificial means." Liar. He'd spent exactly 3 minutes in my room, never touched me, never ran a single test, just collected his fee for saying what Dwight wanted to hear. "The child needs stability," Verena added, her voice dripping with false concern. "I've already been caring for him, managing the household. It would be traumatic to disrupt his routine now. Managing the household by selling my furniture and wearing my jewelry. Caring for Theo by telling him I was never coming back. The rage built like a storm in my chest. "Any objections?" Judge Morrison asked perfunctorily. "We object," my father said quietly, and everyone turned to stare at him. "This feels wrong. Sienna's still alive. Her heart is strong." "Gordon, please," Dwight said condescendingly. "We discussed this. Your emotional attachment is understandable, but we need to think practically. The medical bills alone will bankrupt Theo's future if we don't act now." That's when I heard Theo's voice, clear and strong from the doorway. "My mom's not brain dead." "Someone get the child out of here," Dwight snapped. "This isn't appropriate." "I have a right to be here," Theo said, walking into the room. "You're talking about my mom and my future." Through the slit I'd managed to create between my eyelids, I saw him standing there in his school uniform, backpack on his shoulders, chin raised defiantly. My brave little warrior. "Sweetheart," Verena said in her fake sweet voice, "the adults are handling this. Why don't you wait outside?" "No." Theo moved to my bedside, taking his usual position. "I have something to say first." "This is highly irregular," Judge Morrison protested. "So is dividing up someone's assets while they're still alive?" Theo shot back, and I felt a surge of pride at his courage. That's when I forced my eyes fully open. The gasp that went through the room was like a wave. Verena stumbled backward, her hand flying to her throat where my mother's pearls still rested. Uncle Dwight's legal papers scattered as his hands shook. My mother cried out, a sound between joy and shock, but I wasn't looking at them. I locked eyes with my son, who smiled the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face. "Mommy's awake," he announced unnecessarily. Then, turning to face the room, he asked the question he'd been rehearsing in whispers by my bedside. "Should I tell them what Aunt Verena did to put her here?" The silence was absolute. Even the heart monitor seemed to pause between beats. "That's ridiculous," Verena said, but her voice cracked. "He's a traumatized child making up stories." I couldn't speak yet, my throat raw and unused, but I could move. I raised my hand and pointed directly at her. Then I moved it to point at Dwight. The accusation was clear. "She's confused," Dwight said quickly. "Post-coma delirium. It's common." Theo pulled his iPad from his backpack. "I have videos." 17 videos of you discussing stealing Mom's money, selling her properties, and Aunt Verena admitting she deleted Mom's safety warnings the night of the accident. "Those recordings are inadmissible," one of Dwight's lawyers said quickly. "In court, maybe," my father said, stepping forward with his own phone, "but mine aren't. I'm a party to these conversations. I've recorded every meeting for the past 3 months, including the one where Verena admitted to accessing Sienna's computer and deleting emails about the road construction warnings. Verena's face went from white to green. "I never said that." "March 15th, 2:47 p.m., Dad said, reading from his phone. Quote, "It's not my fault she didn't check her emails. I only deleted a few things to mess with her precious schedule. How was I supposed to know she'd crash?" You deleted safety warnings. Judge Morrison stood up, his casual demeanor vanishing. That's attempted murder. It was just emails, Verena screamed. I didn't make her crash. The room erupted. The court reporter was typing furiously. One of Dwight's lawyers was already backing toward the door. Dr. Reams was stammering about needing to revisit his evaluation. Through it all, I kept my eyes locked on my sister, letting her see every moment of consciousness she'd tried to steal from me. Finally, with tremendous effort, I managed to speak one word, rough and barely audible, but clear enough for everyone to hear. Police. The police investigation unraveled everything like pulling a thread from a cheap sweater. Detective Rivera, a methodical woman who reminded me of a chess player, built the case piece by piece. Verena had been planning for months, maybe longer. The deleted emails weren't just about road warnings. She'd been systematically sabotaging my business communications, deleting contract offers, making me look unreliable to clients. She wanted me overwhelmed, distracted, vulnerable. She didn't plan the exact accident, Detective Rivera explained during one of our interviews, but she created the perfect conditions for something bad to happen. She knew you always drove that route when the main highway was under construction. She knew about the damaged guardrail from the county reports. She deleted 5 separate warnings about that stretch of road. The trial made headlines. Real estate mogul's sister, attempted murder for inheritance, ran in every paper from here to Seattle. Verena got 15 years for attempted murder and fraud. She cried during sentencing, claiming she never meant for me to get hurt, just wanted to level the playing field. The judge didn't buy it. Uncle Dwight lost everything, his law license, his reputation, his freedom, 3 years for conspiracy to commit fraud and elder abuse, because what he'd done to my parents while I was comatose counted as exploitation. He'd convinced them to sign over their retirement savings for medical expenses that never existed. Dad testified against his own brother with tears streaming down his face, but his voice never wavered. Family isn't blood, Dad told me after the trial. It's who shows up when you can't show up for yourself. Dr. Reams lost his medical license for falsifying medical evaluations. Turns out I wasn't his first victim. 3 other families came forward with similar stories of loved ones declared vegetative while still conscious. He'd been taking bribes for years, signing death sentences for profit. Brett never got his custody hearing. The judge reviewed the recordings of him negotiating the price for abandoning his son and terminated his parental rights on the spot. Theo didn't cry when we got the news. He just nodded and said, "Good." He was never really my dad. Anyway, my recovery took 18 months. First, learning to speak again, my voice rough as gravel for weeks. Then walking, my muscles atrophied from half a year of stillness. But the hardest part was learning to trust again. Every time someone from my extended family reached out, I wondered what they wanted, what angle they were playing. The only trust that never wavered was with Theo. He'd saved my life, not just by exposing the truth, but by never giving up on me. During my recovery, he'd sit by my bed doing homework, chattering about school, reading me terrible jokes from his joke book, normal kid stuff that felt like miracles. "How did you know to record them?" I asked him one day during physical therapy, gripping the parallel bars while relearning to walk. "You taught me," he said simply. "Remember when Billy was bullying me in 2nd grade? You said document everything because people can't argue with evidence." My brilliant boy, using my own advice to save my life. My business not only survived, but thrived under the management of my assistant, Janet, who'd stepped up when everyone else was circling like vultures. She'd fought off Verena's attempts to take control, contacted my clients personally to explain the situation, and kept every project running. I made her a full partner the day I returned to the office. The lakefront property never sold. I turned it into exactly what I'd planned, a summer camp for underprivileged kids with a special program for children dealing with family trauma. We named it Second Chances. Theo helps counsel the younger kids, telling them his story of courage when adults fail you. My parents moved into our guest house. Mom never quite recovered from the betrayal of watching her daughter try to murder her other daughter, but she finds peace in gardening and reading to Theo. Dad became my fiercest protector, screening every visitor, every phone call, treating my safety like his personal mission. "I failed you once," he said. "Never again." But the most profound change was in how I saw consciousness itself. Those 6 months taught me that awareness isn't always visible, that someone can be fully present even when their body won't cooperate. I now fund research into coma patient communication and awareness. Too many families give up because they can't see the fight happening inside. Theo, now 12, still has breakfast with me every morning. We moved to a new house, one without memories of betrayal, with a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. He's studying law now, says he wants to be a prosecutor. Someone needs to protect families from their families, he told me last week, his young face serious beyond his years. The wedding ring Verena stole while I lay listening. The police recovered it along with everything else she'd taken. I had it melted down and transformed into a compass pendant for Theo, engraved with the date I woke up and the words, "Truth always finds its way." Some nights I dream I'm back in that hospital bed, trapped and screaming silently while they divide my life into parcels. I wake gasping, heart racing until I remember I'm free. Then I walk to Theo's room, watch him sleeping peacefully. This child who became my hero when everyone else became my enemy. Family isn't who you're born to. It's who stands guard while you're defenseless, who believes in your return when everyone else is planning your funeral. It's an 8-year-old boy with an iPad and unwavering faith that his mother would come back to him. And I did. I always will. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that strength comes in unexpected packages, and that survival sometimes depends on the smallest voices, speaking the loudest truths, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment about a time when someone stood up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of triumph over betrayal, survival against odds, and the unbreakable bonds that save us when we need saving most.